All right, everyone, now it's time for one specific link. It's not archived, by the way, in the description here. One single link that should give you pause with regards to the direction of the Biden economy. And that's from the FDIC. I'm going to look at this and look at it verbatim here. I want you to gaze at this for a moment and see what you can see here. Look at the green line. And now look at the red line and the delay between them, of course, and how closely they correlate throughout time. What do you see in 2023 that looks an awful lot like 2008 and 2009 and 2010? Delayed reaction of bank failures as things spiral out of control because of a few major bank failures. Indeed, this graph has not even been updated at this moment. This graph that you're looking at doesn't even count the total lost assets from First Republic Bank. It's only counting Signature and Silver Valley, I think it was called, and Silicon Valley Bank and the other smaller ones attendant to it. This is only counting two of the major failures that we've had, and there's now been a third as of the other day. It's not on this graph yet. If you extend that last green line upwards, it becomes a lot taller than the one from 2008. Well, that triggered a major crisis. See, the problem, here's the thing. The recession we're probably about to enter, and a significant proportion of even mainline liberal economists believe that that'll be a thing. It's going to hurt. I think it'll be deeper than they're expecting. This entire problem is predicated on Fed interest rates. And the Fed interest rates are entirely predicated upon inflation. And inflation is entirely predicated on several things. Wasteful spending, including some by Donald Trump, something that some people miss. Yes, he did a major stimulus program and that was pertinent to lockdownerism. This is all entirely self-inflicted and has to do with people like lemmings going along with the marching orders of a government that told people that the entire economy needed to be shut down for an extended period of time. That's responsible for what you see here. Unfortunately, if history is an indicator, and it probably will be, the fact that a significant number of large banks are crumbling will lead to a delayed reaction over the next couple of years in which other banks begin to fail. And also, there's another problem. Even though the FDIC and JP Morgan, in the case of First Republic, have been able to respond by buying out dead banks and keeping things generally afloat and making sure to guarantee the depositors, if not necessarily the investors, that could become a problem in the future too. Lack of confidence and lack of investment is going to eventually screw the depositors too at some of those banks. How many more big banks, or even many smaller ones, can fail before you run out of the resources necessary to keep patching all the holes appearing in the hull of the ship of economic state? Right now, they've been able to do that, but because inflation remains roughly linear at the moment, it's sticky inflation as they term it, the Fed may raise rates further. Thus, banks that are on the edge now of becoming like Silicon Valley or First Republic could fall prey as well. You may end up needing to pump the economy more. Then you run into another problem. Hell, it's a runaway train sort of problem. It might prevent it might prevent a great recession, but it causes similar symptoms. You end up having to pump the economy, causing inflation, while to counterbalance the interest rates, while having to raise the interest rates to counterbalance the inflation you're creating. And the hope is that you can kick the can down the road long enough so that it's the next administration's problem to deal with. By the way, I think Trump has foretold the concept that might happen. This is self-inflicted, and people in government should have known better. The ones engineering it did know better and did it deliberately, I think. That's, I think, beyond debate. And it doesn't look good. Now, there is the one thing I would say as an aside is that this graph deals with absolute numbers. Again, that final line is sky high compared to even the pre-Great Recession loss in banking assets, but it's an absolute number not adjusted for inflation. And since we've had a lot of inflation over the last few years, and even before that, inflation tends to be a thing, although there were brief periods under Obama and Trump of deflation. They weren't very long. They didn't match the inflation in between, or the economic growth, of course. Trump came closest to achieving that. Even that didn't put that genie back in the bottle. I would say, though, that the numbers that are there are a little bit less drastic when adjusted for inflation, but even if you were to knock $100 billion off of that line, It would still be higher once you add in First Republic, the second largest bank failure in all of U.S. history. It would still be larger. We have lost more assets as a proportion to the economy itself than before the Great Recession. Now, do I believe that the federal government or the banking sector itself, under its current incarnation, is capable of absorbing this hit? Do I believe that they're capable of bringing order to the situation and preventing more banking failures? No, they assured us that that would be a thing when Silicon Valley went down, and now we have First Federal. So you did have another considerable banking failure, a really big one, which we were assured would not happen. I have to assume that confidence in the banking system and in the government's ability to respond to, this crisis, which is now officially what it is, I have a feeling confidence is going down in the investment circles of the world, especially when they come in and they grab the bank up and then 24 hours later it's in the hands of JP Morgan. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that the assets are any less poorly structured. It doesn't prevent the Fed from raising interest rates. It doesn't prevent a bubble from blowing up in our faces right at a difficult time like this. And in fact, is predicted by many people that that's going to happen. If all those things converge, so sticky inflation, banking failures, and any form of bubble, even a modest one, you will end up in a significant recession, and it will be prolonged because it'll take a long time to rebuild from the damage. The FDIC and federal government and all these others swear that they know what they're doing, but yet time after time after time, there are always periods of regular economic instability in a centralized economic system anyway. It's a boom and bust cycle created mostly by government. So there's an old mythology that it's caused by evil plutocratic speculation. That's not what caused the Great Depression. It was predicated upon government creating monopolies and then randomly busting them up and fiddling with the economy on a micromanagement scale. You didn't have the same kind of boom and bust cycle prior to that era, actually. Yeah, you had a downturn, certainly, but nowhere near that significant. Great Recession, second largest crisis, again, isn't predicated on evil speculators. I mean, within housing, certainly there's some predatory shit going on. Please remember that Clinton set up the easy-to-get-a-home system that helped lead to that failure, because the second that wealth began to decline and things got dicey, millions of people that had homes but really couldn't pay them if it weren't for the government getting involved lost their homes. It was like 1 out of every 5 fucking homes in Rutland was vacant for a while, had been foreclosed on back at the height of the Great Recession around 09, 010, and 2010. I remember it. I was there. That was government predicated. I would note that Biden reinstituted that basic same premise with credit scores and lending rates for government home loans as of a week ago. He reinstituted the same program that caused that bubble in the first place. Now, that damage won't show up for another decade or so, but it's there. He's lit the fuse on a ticking time bomb for some subsequent administration. Hopefully a legit one and not a stewardship. That's about all. Peace out.